We'll just start. We've got quorum, as we like to say. So, hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I've given this webinar a title, and I'm entitling it "The Need for Structure." And I think we're going to discuss today structure and why it's important for this time, particularly for us to have structure, and when we don't have structure, what it does to us. So we'll just start with that. So everyone, my name is Karen Spencer. My business is called It Can Be Different, and I am a life coach, and I help passionate, smart people that are going through a tough time and have come to realize that they need to get beyond how they think and what they think they are, and the programming upon which that they've been programmed through mostly their childhood, in order to realize a new life. And that is the work that I do, and to lead people towards change. So these are bi-weekly webinars, Mondays and Wednesdays, and they are up on YouTube now. There's a YouTube channel under my name, that if you wish to go back and listen to anything or do the exercise again, that can all be accessed in my YouTube channel. So it only takes a day or so to get the latest one up. So I think starting tomorrow, you'd be able to access this one. So let's just do a quick, a really quick review of what we know so far. This is our fourth webinar together. So far in the webinar series, we have discussed and realized that emotions are just chemistry. They're chemical reactions to either a memory or a thought, and that the emotion will match the memory or thought that is being brought forward. So that if it's a negative emotion, there's a focus on either a negative thought or a harmful memory or a negative memory. And alternatively, if you're feeling in a positive emotional state, positive feelings, then you will be obviously reflecting and thinking consciously or unconsciously, positive thinking, positive thoughts, positive memories. And what we've also learned is that over a period of time, that being significant time, and we all know that we can be in these states for long periods of time, if we are in a negative state for quite some time, that we are really affecting our health. And I watched a really interesting program last night on PBS. It was a documentary by Ken Burns, and it was called The Gene. And he talked a lot about the mapping of the genome and all the work that preceded that and what has happened since that. So that happened in the early 2000s. They finally mapped the human genome. And what they were shocked to find was that we only have 20,000 genes. They had mapped, I believe, the genome of a mouse before the human. And I think the mouse came in somewhere around 13, 14, or 15,000 genes. And they thought, well, humans will naturally have hundreds of thousands, if not, multiple hundreds of thousands of genes, if a mouse has, 13,000, let's say. And they were shocked to find that we only have 20,000 genes. And what else came out of that, that investigation, was the fact that they thought they could find the genes that would lead towards disease, so that they could predict with some relative confidence that if you had certain genes, you were likely to get, and you're on the pathway to get, certain diseases. And what's come out since then, in the last 20 years, is a lot of awareness that it is not the gene that drives our health, it's the expression of the gene. And what I mean by the expression of the gene is, are we turning it on or turning it off? And how our genes kind of react in our environment. And we mean both physical environment and internal environment here. So the physical environment is, of course, our health. Are we eating correctly? Are we living in relatively fresh air? Are we getting exercise? And you can appreciate all the external factors that lead towards that. And our internal environment is just as important. So what state are we living in predominantly? And are we turning on these negative gene expressions that will lead over time towards diagnoses and disease? So it's a fabulous program, it probably will rerun. You may want to look it up. It was on PBS last night. It's called The Gene. And it goes in line very much with what we've just been talking about. We also talked about, or on Monday, the fact that I like to think of our emotions as helpful and as useful and as nothing to get upset about as our dashboard on our car. So when we do see the dashboard light on our car to show up and signals that we need an oil change, let's say, I don't think any of us gets into kind of a panic and overreacts. We take action. We realize that we've got some information, that we need to take some action. We need to do some investigation. We need to maybe spend some time thinking about what's going on, and we take action appropriately and we resolve the problem. And in the same way, I'd like you to think about your emotions in the same way. When those prickly negative emotions show up, think of them like an indicator light that's showing up for you to give you some data. That's all it's doing, is just giving you data. And what's the data saying? It's saying awareness. You are focusing either consciously or maybe unconsciously, but you are focusing on negativity. You're focusing away from your natural state of magnificence, of joy, of living life fully and in ease. And there comes now the choice. And this is where I call the fork in the road. Now we have choice, we have awareness, and now we have opened up the opportunity to make a choice for ourselves. And we can either choose to stay in that state and continue to do the same things that lead us more to feeling that way. And we know that where that goes, there's a pretty straight line there. Or we can make a different choice. And we can start to make some choices that are better for ourselves, primarily with our thinking, but also maybe with our physical activity and our environment. But let's say with our thinking and our awareness and how we are perceiving life, and then start to realize that indicator light will start to come off, because we're going to start feeling better. And then when we start feeling better, we start acting better and we start behaving better. And therein lies the change that we are all seeking. And this is very much an ebb and flow. This is not do once and I'm done. This is an ebb and flow that needs to happen sometimes multiple times in a day, depending on the situation, depending on what's going on. And so it's just having this ongoing awareness, this ongoing sense of awareness and sense of knowing how we're feeling, and then making the appropriate changes. So one of the changes that we did talk a lot about in the last couple of days is this choice to surrender. And surrendering is an active choice. It's not a passive choice. It takes a lot of strength to surrender. Surrender is not a give up. It is actually a move towards. And surrendering is when we are willing to let go of our attachment towards results that we are concerned about, that we obsess about, that we think we have to have, typically in the future. And we give up our obsession with what's happening on the outside of us, and we become more concerned about what's happening on the inside of us. Because we start to realize that as we manage our internal state, our external world starts to change to match that. We do sometimes think things in the opposite. We think that if I can just get that job, if I can just manage to attract that relationship, if I can just get so much money in my bank account, then I will feel better. Then I will be happy. Then I will, have success, etc., feel successful. And really, what I want to get across is that what we need to do is work on the inside of us first. And then the outside will start to change to match us. Our perception of the world will adjust because our moods reflect, it's the veil upon which we look at the world through. And we'll start to see things differently. And also because our vibrational stance is going to change, we're going to be living in a much different vibrational way of being, much higher vibration, that the world will start to match that vibration. because we do live in a vibrational world, a vibrational state. This is a vibrational environment. And we all know the law of physics is that like attracts like. So as we change, what shows up in our life for us to enjoy and to benefit from changes as well. So with the idea of surrendering as being one of the very best ways to manage our internal state, we did some breath work and we did some mindfulness exercises to just relax, let go, take our mind off of what's going on outside of us and bring our awareness of what's going on inside of us, predominantly our breath, and to just sink into that feeling and just to notice when our mind wanders off and be okay, that's okay, and just bring it back and enjoy how that feels in the moment and how that can actually linger and last for a long period of time. And that type of exercise and just having some mindful breath work is something that we can do anytime, as many times a day as we need to manage our state back to one of calmness and in the present moment. So with that, let's move on to what I've been thinking about a lot over the past couple of weeks, and it's kind of finally culminated into what I want to talk about today. It's been in the back of my mind, and what I want to talk about today is structure, and more importantly, intentional structure in our lives. So most of us think about what we really, really want is freedom. You know, if you ask people, what do you really want? Well, I'm sure money comes up as one of them, which is really, you know, a form of energy, you know, positive and good relationships. But a lot of times people say, I want freedom. And I want to be free to do whatever I want, whenever I want, untethered to the world, untethered to expectation, etc. And for the most part right now, we are living in the paradox of that desire for freedom. And this is what I've been really churning around in my head, is that on one hand, we are very constrained due to the lockdown. We've been asked to stay home. We cannot socialize with our friends and family the way we are used to. Our work is maybe being done differently, or it's been not, we're not doing work at all. So we're living in the constraints of the pandemic and the lockdown. And yet at the same time, in our homes, let's say, we have this unbelievable freedom. We have all this time. We are not set up with expectations like we used to have. You know, typical things that would be in our life, like maybe established meetings, have to catch, you know, in my house, have to catch a train at a certain time. You know, those types of constraints, those kinds of expectations have been wiped off. We're living in this very fluid environment where I can pretty much do, and you too, whatever I want with my day. So we're living in this paradox of constraints and total freedom. And what's come into my awareness that I'm going to share to see if it brings any enlightenment to you is that total and complete freedom is actually kind of painful, and it's rather crippling. And it really isn't a state that we as humans are meant to live in. And that what we really want is structure, because structure makes us feel safe and it makes us feel secure. So this belief that we want total freedom comes from the idea that we have that the highest level of our existence, the highest level of our expression, is what we call independence. We have been told, and I think we all believe, that if we're independent people, we don't need anyone, we're totally self-sufficient, that we are at the highest level of our being. And really what we need to understand is that we are very interconnected, and those interconnections are so important. Just start to map out some of the things, the domino effect of what's happening. You know, first of all, it started, I think, 4 weeks ago now. Kids were told they're not going to go back to school. They need to take an extra week, which is now obviously extended. But the domino effect of just that trigger, you know, just follow that line. Kids not at school, parents have to work at home, you know, maybe parents not getting, you know, not be able to fulfill their work. So now they are out of work. That leads to inability to maybe purchase goods and services. Stores are closing, so there are no goods and services to purchase. We're not going out. The economy starts to suffer, and you can just draw the line. It just starts to really spread into so many aspects of life. I mean, even the kids not going to school now is causing milk to be dumped, because all this milk for the milk programs is not being consumed. So now farmers are needing to dump milk. So you can just see how interconnected we truly are. We think we're independent, but I'm really starting to have some awareness of how we are all just clogs in a very big wheel, and that's the way it should be. So even though we have this feeling that independence is the highest form that we want to strive to, it's really the highest form of functioning is interdependence. And interdependence is where we are part of a larger being, a larger system, and that we can rely rather unconsciously on all the parts to be there. So kind of like our body, we don't sit here, we don't worry about the functioning of our bodily systems. I'm not worried that my body is digesting my breakfast. I just know it is. I can trust in that. And that allows me to have freedom to focus on other things, like talking on this webinar, for example. And the same thing in the larger ecosystem of the world, just relying on the systems to be there, that, you know, they will be there, and I can rely on them rather unconsciously, allows us to then be part of the world and to do our best work, because we can let go of that other worry. And so we are really part of a larger system, a larger structure. And the structure really is such that each of us together, 1 + 1 does not equal 2. 1 + 1 = 3. So we're living in this weird paradigm where we're locked down and constrained, and yet we have all this personal freedom inside our homes and with ourselves. So what I'm starting to realize, or what I think we need to talk about a little bit, is how regular routine can really bring upon a sense of security. And how can we put that routine into our life today to allow us to get through this pandemic in a more easy way, in a more enjoyable way, and with less anxiety or stress. So we need to get intentional about providing a structure to our day. And what I've noticed is that I've been playing around with this concept a little bit for myself, and to see how much intentional structure do I need. And I used to think at the beginning of this lockdown that if I just did a few things every day, like walk the dog a couple of times and make sure at least I've got dinner on the table, that would be enough structure for me to feel okay during the day. And what I've come to realize is that that is not enough for me. That I need to have structure both on the outside of my life, so like the walking the dog, making the meals, that kind of thing. But I also need structure and routine and intention towards my inner self, my inner development, my inner work. So I have come to realize, and I'm implementing a lot of structure and a lot of routine around the work that I need to do to grow myself. So things like, am I giving myself time for meditation? Am I giving myself time for journaling and reading? There's a few podcasts that I like to follow. Am I bringing that into my structure? Am I giving myself the space, the time to enjoy and reflect and bring those podcasts into my day? Am I giving myself enough time to do my work and to create the work that I want to be creating, and be creative with my thinking and my work? So this kind of structure, both inside and outside, my outside world and my inside world together, is allowing me to go through this pandemic and this lockdown in my home, and allowing me to have a lot less anxiousness and a lot less stress about how I'm going through it, and allowing me to face the uncertainty and the unknown of what's going to show up. So what does healthy structure need? So healthy structure, what I've come to realize, needs a couple of things. It needs connection with others. So for healthy structure, we need to have connection with others. We need to feel like we're still part of a community, and that's why these things like this webinar is so important. People are talking a lot about Zoom dining now. They're dining together on Zoom. Lots of meetings are still happening through online forums. So people are having a sense of structure. Neighbors are getting together for their weekly chat instead of over the fence. They're doing it together on Zoom. So a sense of connection to others is important for the structural components, and also a sense of connection with oneself. So the ability to just go in and connect with oneself, and to feel that groundedness, that checking in with oneself to make sure one is okay, and to allow whatever needs to come up, and to not put a lid on it, and to not hold it down. So what I've come to realize for myself is that walking the dog, although necessary and important, obviously, that I need to do my own personal walks. I need to have time, at least 30 minutes, hopefully 45 or more, where I can go for a personal walk by myself. And what this allows me to do is I can be with my thoughts, I can enjoy the fresh air, I can just connect with what's going on inside of me, I can feel whatever needs to come up so I can address it. And typically I get some really good creative ideas about my work, and I can move my journey with my work along the way from having that personal time to myself. So there's not a lot of structure in lockdown. Structure has been taken away from us. The things that we've relied on are no longer there. So structure has been taken away. We've just been told to go home and basically sit inside our homes. And we don't know, really, if we really, to be honest with ourselves, we don't know when this will end. We don't know how it will end. And we don't even know, really, if you're like me, what day of the week it is. The other day, I was talking to a friend, and she said, it's a lot like the week between Christmas and New Year's. You know, that week between Christmas and New Year's, that is so brilliant because people aren't busy and the shopping of Christmas is over, and typically people aren't working, and you really kind of float through that week and you don't really know what day of the week it is. And that's what we feel like we've been on for about 4 weeks. We've been on that Christmas break week for about 4 weeks. And so it feels very weird. It's a very strange feeling. So without a strong sense of structure, we don't feel safe and we don't feel held. And that is what I was struggling with before. I was asking myself, well, why am I having so much difficulty with this? And one of the answers that came to me in the last while is because I hadn't had enough structure in my life. Had not, especially the internal structure. So there is a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. We don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to happen with the virus, with work, with other people's work, with the economy, with health, with families, with how we are going to move through this together. So my suggestion to all of you today is to look in your life and see where you can create structure. Try some things on. I had to. See if this is what you need to commit to yourself, that I will do this every day, or I will make sure this happens every day for myself. Either in your outside world or hopefully in your inside world. And I'm going to work with this, and I'm going to allow this structure, because with that structure, I guarantee that you will, like me, find it easier to move through this time of uncertainty and just focus on what I need right here, right now, and to lean on the supports of the structure that you've put in for yourself. So that is where I'm going to leave it today. I am wishing everybody a very healthy and happy next 5-6 days or so till we meet again. And I encourage everyone, like I talked about today, to sit back, try some things that work for you from a sense of structure. See what works, see what you can commit to yourself to follow through and to put in these systems that are going to help you face the uncertainty that we're in a much calmer and more relaxed way. And from that, I just want to wish everyone a very happy rest of the week and weekend, and to stay safe and to stay home. Bye for now.